Well, welcome back, everyone, to the next iteration of the Fiduciary Fitness podcast. I'm really pleased to be joined by Kelly Hahn, who's an executive director at JP Morgan Asset Management. Kelly, welcome back. Really glad you're here.
Thank you, Colin.
We always have a saying here. Really, what is retirement other than just trying to replace your paycheck for your longest period of employment? And so as people are living longer, you have to finance that with income. What I'm really curious to ask you about is, based on the data that you all compile at JP Morgan, what are the issues around longevity and life expectancy that you guys see?
Generally, over the long term, the average life expectancy has gone up pretty meaningfully over the last several decades. And that's because people are exercising, people are eating better. I think kale smoothie is now staple, which never existed, like a decade ago, right? And in addition, the medical advances have gotten so much better that we're screening for things, diagnosing and treating illnesses when we get sick have improved so drastically that our longevity over the long term has gotten even greater. I think there's a blip because of COVID in 2020 and 2021. CDC came out with the latest number that the average lifespan has dropped by 3 years for people who are born in 2021. But I do think the trend will reverse and it's going to continue to grow over time. So what we say is that family history, if you have family members who've died from cancers or other illnesses, it's no longer your destiny, and that it's really important to plan for a long life in retirement. But I think one of the biggest mistakes that many people make when it comes to planning for retirement is that they assume that they're going to live an average life expectancy or lifespan. And what that entails is that oftentimes they're only going to get to the midway, halfway in between of their entire retirement journey. And what that is risking is that they're risking on the second half, the back half, that there is a high likelihood that they run out of money before dying. Yeah. So it's really important that they understand not just the average life expectancy, but probabilities of living to various ages. And the latest data that we've been able to analyze, the one statistics that really jumps out at me is that there's almost 44% chance for people who are healthy and who've been non-smokers, almost 1 out of 2 chance that either you or your spouse will live to age 95 or beyond.
Yeah.
So that's really staggering when you think about that, right?
So that really puts the emphasis on making sure you're saving enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we always have the 90-10-90 rule for plan sponsors. We want, 90% of folks in your plan saving at least 10% of their own money, not including the employer contribution, and then 90% of folks in some sort of asset allocation target date type of fund. And I know JP Morgan has done such great research around how target date funds minimize the volatility for investors so that they are able to save more and not experience the roller coaster, the volatility of investing. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. And I think some of the other implications that people need to think about when it comes to longer lifespan, not only just having enough money that's going to last lifetime, are things like, what do you want to do with Social Security? If you have enough wealth from the time you retire until you could collect Social Security, maybe you may want to consider claiming Social Security to age 70, because if you live a long time, then over time, the total payout that you'll get from Social Security will be larger if you have a long life. And also, as you're alluding to on the investment side, if you will live a long life, then you may need to have a little bit more growth in the portfolio to keep pace with inflation, number one. And number two, to be able to support spending over an extended period of time. So I think, having a long life in retirement is a great thing. We want to do it and we want to be able to pay for it. And the implications in terms of retirement planning can be many different ways.
Well, it's really interesting too, just along those lines. One thing that jumped out at me, you kind of outlined an acronym, right? You say an individual who pushes tends to age well. Can you expand on that a little bit in terms of, people, they have a sense of purpose, they're active, right? I literally was just on a call, doing a one-on-one meeting with a participant, and they were just talking about the fact that they're not going to stop. And so what they're experiencing right now in retirement is they're spending more money than they thought they would.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we replace the purpose that we once had through working in retirement with something else. So what you're referring to, the quote unquote pushes, the acronym that we developed of the people who tend to age well, those who claim that they're happy in retirement are those who have purpose and who use time to work, help others, and go on events, and those who socialize, those who practice healthy behaviors, right? That's going to even extend the longevity even further. Those who experience gratitude. And lastly, those who focus on strengths, the things that we're still good at, not focusing on things that we're becoming less good at, are those who tend to be happy and claim that they are having a great time in retirement. So I think it's important to, when we think about transitioning to retirement, it's important that we shift our focus and have a different sense of purpose in a way to be able to fill the time and to feel like we're contributing to the society and that we're connecting with our loved ones.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And again, when it comes down to it, we're trying to replace our paycheck for the longest period of our employment. I said that earlier. So the question is what we always try to encourage folks to understand is when you see that on the horizon, it's time to sharpen your pencil and figure out, what are my goals? Where do I want to live? How do I want to live? How do this lifestyle change? How does it work into what I'm doing? Because I think the data shows, and again, I think the Guide to Retirement shows, people are actually spending more money in retirement than they were when they were working. And we have to be able to plan for that properly. Not saying it's right or wrong. It's just, hey, if you're going to be that active and that engaged, then we need to figure out, okay, how are we going to do that?
Yes. And we do show that in Guide to Retirement in terms of how spending changes throughout lifetime. And like you said, it tends to be pretty high in the beginning, and then it tends to decline, and then it tends to tick back up. That coincides with greater needs in healthcare and long-term care issues. So I think it would be really helpful for people to see visually how spending changes so that they could reflect that in their retirement planning.
And that's some of the content that we use. And that's a great segue into the next segment. So we'll go ahead and wrap up this segment on longevity, and we're going to go ahead and transition into how spending evolves in the retirement and how the Guide to Retirement puts things in perspective for everyone. So Kelly, thanks so much. This has been great. And we will talk to everyone soon on the next segment of the Fiduciary Fitness podcast.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for this week's show. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy our show, we'd love for you to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you access your podcasts. The opinions voiced in this program are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial, or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, and SIPC. Investment advice offered through Global Retirement Partners, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Global Retirement Partners, Washington Financial Group, a division of Hub International Mid-Atlantic, and Hub International are not affiliated with LPL Financial. Global Retirement Partners, LPL Financial, Washington Financial Group, and Hub International are not affiliated in any way with the services offered by any guest on this show.
Poor Jeff, he's having to listen to this conversation. All right, hopefully Jeff can edit that, right?